Hello, I'm Bob Miller, Vice President, Merchandising Consumer Products. RadioShack is a leader in the telephone business and is clearly #1 in sales of telephone accessories, plugs, jacks, and wiring. When consumers shop at RadioShack, they expect more than just the merchandise. They also expect knowledge and guidance in the installation and use of the merchandise they are about to purchase. Now I would like to introduce Joel Guskin, RadioShack's telephone buyer, who will show you how to wire and install our telephone accessories.
Hello, I'm Joel Guskin, telephone products buyer for RadioShack. Installing your own telephone lines is a very easy and very simple thing to do. A few basic steps and a few instructions, and you'll have no problem doing it yourself. It is a little easier to install your telephone system if you understand a little bit background. Your telephone line comes from a central office, known as a CO. A central office is generally a brick building somewhere in your town that houses all the wiring, the relays, the switching. It is the central nervous system for the telephone system for your town. Now, from your central office, you'll receive a transmission line. Now, the transmission line to your neighborhood will look something like this. It's a big, heavy cable that will either run overhead, such as we see here, or it can be underground. Now, underground, when your phone system comes from there, it will look something like this, and comes from a device known as a pedestal. The transmission line comes to the pedestal. At the pedestal, they split it to bring it into your house. Now, once it's at your house, it's known as a demarcation point. The demarcation point can be located almost anywhere. It can be in your garage, it can be in your attic, it can be in your basement, it can even be in a closet. The demarcation point is the place where the phone company service stops and your own individual wiring starts. Now, this demarcation point can look almost like anything. Let me show you a couple of examples of things that it can look like. This particular demarcation block you'd normally find in an apartment in a closet. Blocks such as these you'll generally find outside next to your electrical service. If they've installed it in your house, you will generally find something that looks like this, known as a network interface. This is where the phone company's wiring will stop, and we need to take over from there. If you do find a network interface such as this in your house, you're going to need one other device, and that is known as an entrance bridge. Now, RadioShack sells the entrance bridge. It's a little device that looks like this. I'll get into it later how it installs and all comes together. Now, when you buy a telephone, you'll see somewhere in the instructions that you need to install an RJ11 jack or an RJ14 jack. These jacks are from the USOC code. A USOC code, which is USOC, stands for Universal Standard Ordering Code. It was developed by the old Bell system to make installation easier and more uniform across the nation, so everybody was talking about the same thing. There are many different types of jack in the USOC code. There are dozens of them. But for most small business and home installation, we only need to know about two jacks, the two most common. An RJ11 jack, which is used for single line service, which is when you only have one telephone number, and an RJ14 jack, which is for two-line service. Obviously, that means when you have two different telephone numbers. Now, generally, an RJ11 or an RJ14 will be seen as RJ11C or RJ11W. An RJ11C is generally a baseboard jack. It's on next to the baseboard of your wall. You'll have a wire that runs from that jack to the base of your telephone. The W in RJ11, RJ11W, would stand for a wall plate. This means that the phone does require a wall plate for installation. Now, most homes have 4 wires, such as we see here in this diagram. They're generally red, green, yellow, and black. Now, in an RJ11 setup, we're only going to use 2 wires, and that is going to be the red and the green wire. And we're going to attach them to the red and the green terminals. If you're installing a 2-line telephone system, an RJ14, we're still going to use the same physical jack, except now what we have is the red and the green, again connecting to the red and green terminals, are going to be line 1. The yellow and black wires are now line 2. When we do our installation, I'll explain what to do if your color code should be a little different than this. One other thing you should know is that there's an old term around known as tip and ring. These are leftover terms from the early 1900s when telephone operators used a 1/4-inch jack, such as this. Now, what the term referred to was when she plugged in, she had the tip. Today's world was the ring. But you still might hear it, so that's what it refers to. This was the tip, and this was the ring. It has nothing to do with the ringer of your telephone. Now, telephones are connected in a parallel circuit. Phone line coming in is going to be our 2 wires. We're going to tap off these wires to hook up each individual telephone. We're not going to break the line. The line will continue on through, and we're just going to tap into it. A series connection would be where we'd break the line. We'd have the line coming in to a device, going back out to another device, and back to the connection to the connecting point. We are not going to do that. All the telephone work will be in a parallel configuration. Now, there's a couple of different wires available for you to use when you're doing telephone installation. There's flat modular and solid wire. The flat modular wire, such as this, obviously, is flat and has 4 wires in it. Now, these 4 wires are side by side. This wire is only to be used from the base of a telephone to the modular jack. You are not to wire your house with this type of wire. As a matter of fact, if some phone companies see this type of wire being used, they may not install the service. You can only use this wire up to 25-foot lengths. To go any longer than that, and you're going to create a phenomenon known as crosstalk. Now, crosstalk, let me explain it. The red and green wires, as I've said, are line 1. The yellow and black wires are line 2. Now, since they're side by side, like this, if you're holding 2 conversations, you're going to hear each conversation on each other's line. That is crosstalk. One line will hear what the other one's doing. That's something that can be a little disconcerting when you're trying to have a call. You should wire your house with solid wire. Now, as you can see here, the wire is round, and we still have 4 wires, and we still have our 4 colors. Now, if you look closely, these wires are twisted. This twisting of the wire, which goes all the way through the wire, is what helps prevent the crosstalk. This wire is also more durable and easier to use when making your connections. So let's start making connections. The first thing we're going to do is new construction installation. It's the easiest to do since all we have to deal with is the framing of the home. Now, when you go to install these jacks, you must determine where you're going to have the service enter your home. First thing to do is make a little plan of your home. Generally, they're going to install the service for your telephone at the same point where your electrical service comes in. So we've shown it here. And this is where your service entrance is going to be. This is where we're going to start wiring the house. We want to wire the house in a loop as much as possible so that the wire can loop from room to room. Determine where you want to put the phone outlets. As we've shown in this drawing, we've got one in the living room, kitchen, hallway, and in a master bedroom. Make the map so you know where you want the jacks to be. Now is the best time to install extra jacks for future expansion while all we have to deal with is some studs. Decide what type of outlet you want to put in these rooms. Now, obviously in a bedroom, we're going to install a jack on the wall for a desk telephone. And we're going to install a wall jack in the kitchen. Make sure you've decided all the jacks that you need and mark the locations where you're going to install these jacks so you know where to place all the hardware we're going to start to use. Have all the tools that you need ready. You're going to need a drill, a 1/2-inch drill bit, plenty of wire, now's not the time to run out, hammer, staples, outlet boxes, modular jacks, a screwdriver, wire cutter, and a wire stripper. Now we're going to have to drill some holes in our studs to put our wiring through. If there's already holes in the studs that have been placed there by the electrician, leave those holes alone. In a lot of locales, they do not allow the telephone wiring to be placed in the same holes as the electrical wiring. Drill your own holes. We're going to try to keep our runs as short as possible, so again, your map has been helpful for that. And let's drill a hole. Let me put on some safety goggles here. Now I've decided that I want my jack about here, so I'm going to start drilling a little bit higher than that. Okay, we got one done. And our last one here, because I already have a drop. Okay. Now that's going to be our last hole because I already dropped some wire down here. Now this wire is coming from the attic. Like I said, it is okay to run the wire through the attic to keep the lead short, but again, be careful while you're doing it. So now we need to pull our wire through so I can get it through these holes. And we're just going to feed it right on through. Pull the wire as you need it. And continue on through all the holes. Now I'm going to need a little extra wire here, so I'm going to come back. I'm going to pull a little bit more. It's always better to have a little bit extra. Down to where I'm going to be mounting the outlet. Just take care and common sense as you drill through in the attic, and make sure you wear your goggles. Now we're going to mount an outlet box for the jack. Now let me show you something on this outlet box. The outlet box has a line. I've accentuated it here so it's easier for you to see. This is the line that we're going to use to mount the box to the stud. It's a lineup. This box has to come out from the wall far enough for the drywall, so we're going to use this. Also, the box has a couple of knockouts. We're going to knock one of these out so we can get our wire through. So let me put this box on the wall here, making sure that I've lined up with the mark. Grab my hammer. Now if the box is affixed, I'm going to knock out one of these knockout holes. Make sure that it's cleared. Take out the plastic. And I'm going to pass my wire through the knockout into the box. I'm going to leave, roughly 8 to 12 inches for me to connect the outlet a little bit later. And now I'm going to pull back some of this extra wire here so I don't have a sloppy installation. And I'll pull back the rest of it into the attic when I get back up there. When you're installing a jack for a desk telephone, it's best to put it approximately 12 inches off the floor. When you're installing the jack for a wall telephone, then it should be approximately 4.5 feet off the floor. Now, we have our wire. We've dressed it through. Now, here it's fairly simple, but there's going to be cases where you haven't been able to make a loop run like this. Let me show you over here. If you'll notice, I'm showing the wire is going to come to here and then pass on through to here and one to a telephone. I'm going to make a little distribution point. Now, to make a distribution point, I've got one back here to show you. We're going to use a block known as a 42A block. This is my main wire coming in. This is going to be my wire going to the bedroom, and this is going to be my wire going to the living room area. It's a very simple connection. Just make sure you have yellow with yellow, red with red, green with green, and so on. Keep the color coding all the same. Now, if for some chance you should run out of wire and you need to splice the wire, that's no problem either. All you have to do is take the wire, strip it back, and again, keeping the color codes, twist the wire together. Make a good solid twist. It's going to be there for many years to make a good mechanical and electrical connection. Now, if you wish, you may solder the connection at this point. It will make a better electrical connection. It is not necessary, but of course you must tape it so that the wires won't touch. Once you're sure you've got all your wires in place, staple the wires down. Make sure you use an insulated staple. We don't want to go cutting through the wire and possibly shorting it out. Now we're ready for the drywall to be placed on. Now that our house is almost finished, we've got our drywall installed. Now, for the purposes of demonstration, we've set this up so I'm a little bit more at a normal level, so I can show this to you a little bit easier. At this step, we need to install our modular jack. First thing we're going to do is take our loop and cut it. Then going to take our stripper and strip off some of this outer insulation. Do it from both sides. Don't forget, everything is done in a loop so that we need the wire to continue on, which is why we have to do both sides. Now we need to strip off some of the inner insulation. Again, we're going to have to do it from both. Okay, we're almost done here. There's going to be a little bit of cleanup, some of the extra insulation when we're done. Now we're going to take the wires, again following the color code, and twist them together. Remember, I said everything has to be in a loop, so we need to continue the loop on for the next connection. So I'm going to match all the wires here. Get the red one here. Make sure you got a good tight twist. And the last one. There we go. Now we're going to take the jack, and we're going to, again, follow the color code. So we'll start with the yellow. I'll put it on. Then, of course, we're going to have the red. Little half twist to put it on there. This one doesn't want to go on. Sometimes happens. Okay. It's a little hard to show you and put it on at the same time, but I think you get the basic idea. And the green. And of course, last but not least, we have the black. Now, I'm connecting all the wires. Even though this is only going to be a single line installation, we're only going to have one phone number in the house. I'm connecting all the wires just in case I add another line later. I don't have to go back and rewire all these jacks. Now, a jack needs to install in this position. The little wires inside the jack need to be on the top. This is done so that if the jack should not have a phone plugged into it, dust won't settle on these little wires, creating a problem later on when we do install a phone into the jack. Now I'm going to adjust the wires back in, line up the holes, grab a screw, start this one, grab another one, put it down here, tighten those up. Okay, you got some little slots here. It's like you see here to move it back and forth. This is just to make sure that the jack is lined up straight. I can move it in these little slots if I need to, so it doesn't appear to be on an angle. There we go. See, it's on a little bit of an angle here, so I'll move it, straighten it up, and tighten it down. Now all we have left is the cover. Screw on the top. And one to go. more time-consuming than anything else, as you've seen. Our jack is all installed. We continue this on through the rest of the house for all the rest of the jacks. Now we wait for the phone company to install our service. The phone company has now come in and installed your service for you, and they kind of installed it several different ways. They're going to install your demarcation point, and it's going to be a network interface. Now we can have a couple of different types. We can have a network interface by itself, such as you see here, or we can have a network interface with an entrance bridge installed. I'll explain that in a second. What we have here is just the network interface. The phone company has come and they've terminated their wiring at this point. Let's say it's in the garage. This is as far as they will go. Now we have our wiring that we've installed from the house. We need to connect our wiring to the telephone company's wiring. We need to install a device known as an entrance bridge. You simply mount the device, and again, following your color codes, grab a screwdriver here. We're going to mount the red to the red. As you can see, I've already stripped back our wires. I've left enough so that there's plenty, and I don't have to try to stretch it, possibly break a wire. And I continue to follow the color code all the way through. Now, you know I've said that we only use 2 wires, and you see me connecting all 4. I'm connecting all 4 in the event that we get additional service later. I don't have to go back and play with these connections. Everything will be all made. Now, I'm going to dress my wires in. Grab the cover, put it on, make it a neat installation. And now all I have to do is take our entrance bridge and plug it into the telephone company's network interface. I am now bridged from the local phone service into my house wiring. This is one way of doing it. Let's go outside and I'll show you another way that it could be presented to you. The other type of interface that may have been installed is a network interface with the entrance bridge already there. Now, these are generally installed on the outside, such as you see here. What we need to do is we need to open it, of course, and connect our house wiring, which I've already drilled through, to the telephone company's network interface. Now, it's fairly simple. We'll take our little stripper, strip off some wire, and place it in the box. It's a firm fit to hold it. Separate the wires. And simply push them through. And then I'm going to screw them down. Okay, we always want to make sure that we follow the color code. So I've done the black, the yellow, the red. You notice I'm trying to leave a little bit showing on the other side to make sure that I'm all the way through and making a good connection. And of course, then we have the green. Okay, now as you've noticed, I didn't strip the wire back from any of the inside wires. That's because this particular box has a little fitting like this in it. These little teeth will automatically cut through the insulation and pierce the wire to make our connection. Just makes it a little bit easier, and it was very convenient of the phone company to have done this for us. Well, I've connected my inside wiring. My outside wiring's been supplied by the telephone company. I'm going to plug into it and seal the insulation here. Make sure we don't get a draft. The water doesn't come in. And we're all set to go. Our installation is now done. Now, the network interface is used for a couple of reasons. The primary reason is it makes it easy for the telephone company. There's a little device inside this box that the phone company can test the lines if there's a problem on the line. If there is, their computer will search down your pair of wires. It will test it. The little device inside this box will let them know if the trouble is within their lines or inside your house. How do you determine if it's inside your house? Well, the box is very convenient for that also. What we're going to do now is we're going to unplug the line. This will disconnect the house. This part is running to the house. This outlet is running to the phone lines from the phone company. Now, we can either use a telephone or our handy telephone line tester and plug in. If the light comes on, the phone line is probably okay. If the light does not come on, then that means the trouble is with the phone line from the phone company. Go ahead and call them and have them check it. But if the light does come on, that means the problem is inside your house and with your wiring. This has now saved you a considerable expense from calling for a service call to have them tell you the problem's just in your house wiring, and they will not correct it. It is your responsibility. You've installed it. That's all there is to this. We're all set. I'm going to take out my tester. I'm going to plug in our house wiring again, close the box. Let's go inside and install another jack. Of course, there's always going to be times when you need to install an additional jack for a new location or you've moved something, and we need to run it from an existing jack. It's the easiest way to do it. We know the jack is already working. We'll start at this point. Now, let me show you what we're going to do over here. Say this is the bedroom, and we have our jack here right now. And you can see it's already at the end of the line. It's got the single line in it. But we're going to move our bed over here, which means our nightstand's going to move and our telephone's going to move with it. So what we want to do is we want to go from this existing jack around the corner to the new jack and install a new jack here. Now let me show you how. Well, for the purpose of demonstration, I've already removed the plate and freed the jack from the wall. So we're all set to go. Now, I've already stripped back my wires on my new cable, and I'm all set. Now, before you start playing with this, take a phone off hook somewhere in the house. This way, nobody can call you. You'll just get a busy signal back. Although we're not dealing with a lot of current here, ring voltage could give you a little bit of a tingle if someone called while we were working on this. So take that phone off and then go ahead and start your installation. Now, I'm going to hook the yellow to yellow, just like we've done before. I realize this is getting a little bit repetitive, but it is very important that the color code must be followed all the way throughout on every phone jack. If you accidentally were to reverse a couple of wires and change the color coding, somewhere down the line, it means that you have reversed tip and ring, which I talked about way back at the beginning. If you reverse tip and ring, somewhere down the line, a phone isn't going to work. And you'll have to go back and retrace all your steps as to what you did wrong. So it's easier to just remember to follow the color code. Okay, we're almost done here. I got one more wire to do. Again, I'm connecting all wires just so future installation is easy in case I get another line. Okay, there we go. I've added another set of wires following it all the way through. Now I'm going to place this back in the wall, making sure that that's up. Let me turn this around here. Now, to do this a little quicker, I'm only going to put one screw back in. When you do this, of course, you can go ahead and mount the plate back on, put all the screws back in place. Now, there is an easier way to do this, or I should say really a neater way to do this, and that would be to have run the wire inside the wall and come out the bottom. I'll show you how to do that in a few minutes, but for this installation, let's go ahead and run the wire along the outside. Now, to run it to our new location, we can go ahead and put it along the baseboard, such as this, using a staple, and stapling it in place with your hammer. Or there's another way to do it that's a little bit easier, and that would be to run it all the way down to where the carpet is, and then just push it in between the baseboard and the carpet with a flat blade screwdriver. Now, this is perfectly safe. Like I say, with telephones, we're really not dealing with a whole lot of voltage. And also, people don't generally walk along the corners of walls, so we're not going to have any traffic on it, and it's not going to wear out. Now, for the demonstration, I'm not going to take it around a corner. I'll pretty much stop right here. Now, we want to add our new jack to the baseboard. I'm going to cut off from my spool. Oh, I'll leave myself about 6 to 8 inches. Cut that off. Again, we're going to strip it back. And then, one more time, we will strip our wires. You can use a regular wire cutter to strip the wire. I'm using this tool because this way I don't nick the little wires inside. If you were to nick the little wires when you go to connect them to the jack, they could break off and you'd have to start again. Now, since my wire is coming from the bottom up, I've got to make a knockout in the jack. There's one up here also, so that the wire can pass through. Well, we've got to remember, these little wires inside have got to be up. So, since the wire is coming from the bottom, I need to knock out this part down here. I'm just going to use the wire cutter. I'm just going to cut it. It's a little hard for me to show you. See? And what I've done is I've made a little pass-through for the wire to go into. Now we're going to attach the wires like we've done before, red to red, green to green, yellow to yellow. And then just go ahead, put the wire in through here, and then just mount it on your wall. That'll be easiest. It's also a handy time to go changing old jacks if you've got any. Instead of the old 4-prong, while we're doing this, you might as well change them to modular. Let me show you how to install a wall phone. Installing a wall phone is not that much harder than installing a baseboard jack like we've already done. Let me show you how we're going to do it. We're going to have our wire along the baseboard like I already have installed here. We're going to come up to our wall phone installation point. Now, for the purpose of this demonstration, we're not going to go the full height so you can see everything that I'm doing. Under normal conditions, you would mount the wall phone jack 4.5 feet above the floor for the proper height. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take ourselves a mounting box. Now, this is a special mounting box. This mounting box has little flanges on the back, such as these here. What this is going to allow us to do is once we've cut our hole, these will be down, we'll insert this in, and then when we go to tighten the jack, this flange will pull up, the wall will be here in the center, and the flange will pull tight against the wall, and the front will be against the front of the wall, and will hold this jack in place for us. So, first thing we need to do is we need to hold it up there, grab a pencil, and trace it so we can cut the right size. Try to get it in here straight. There we go. And we've got our mark on the wall. Now there are several ways we can go from here. I can either drill a hole, I can punch a hole with a screwdriver, but let's have a little bit of fun with it. Let's knock a hole in the wall so we can start this jack. Now I've got our hole started. I'm going to take the keyhole saw and I'm going to start cutting the hole. There we go. That didn't take too long. Now take the box, make sure it fits. Okay, we're going to have a good fit there. Pull out the box. Now we've got to get the wire from the wall board, from the baseboard, up to here. So we're going to need to knock a hole down here. Well, again, you can drill it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my screwdriver, turn it to a fine point, pick a space right about here, directly under the jack, and just poke a hole. Now, when you're dealing with wallboard, it's fairly simple to do this. It goes in rather easily. Just making sure the hole's a little bit larger so our wire fits through easily. We're all set there. Now, to get the wire up, I'm going to use a fish. Now, you can do this, like I was telling you before, when you go through walls, you could have done this through the attic, through the basement, the same principle is going to apply, that you need to fish the wire up. So in this case, we're going to stick it through here and try to work it up the wall. Now, if there was insulation in this wall while I was doing this, it would be fighting me, but the same principle applies. You just have to sort of work it through. It may take you a few tries to get it through. Just keep working at it and be a little bit diligent, and you'll find that eventually you'll get the fish to come up through, there we go, through the hole. There. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some string. I'm going to tie the string onto the fish. Take a little piece of tape here. Tape it on. Now make sure you've done this so it's nice and tight so that the string doesn't fall off when you pull the fish back through. Otherwise you have to go back to the beginning and start all over again. Okay, now I'm going to pull the fish back through, and I'm going to feed the string with it. I'm going to do this slowly so I don't lose it. When you feel it catch, you're pretty much about at the end, and you need to take it a little bit slower. There it goes. And bring it on through. Now, so I don't lose this, I'm going to tape this to the wall so it doesn't fall in. Use a little Scotch tape here. Use Scotch tape so I don't damage the wall. I'm going to remove my fish. Put it off to a side. Now I need to get my telephone cable from the baseboard up to the hole in the wall. So the easiest thing to do is just measure it up. I'll leave myself about 6 to 8 inches and cut it. Put our extra to a side. And now I'm going to take the wire and I'm going to attach it to the string that I've just installed. So I'm going to twist it around. Take another piece of tape. Tape it on there firmly so it doesn't fall. I'm going to come up to my string, release it from the wall, and I'm going to start pulling on the string. Now at the same time I'm pulling on the string up here, you may need an assistant for this or your wall's a little longer. You're going to have to feed it into the wall down here. So we're going to feed it in past the tape. There we go. And then just pull it through. And being careful that you don't pull the tape off. There we go. And now I'm just going to pull this through so that I line up down there. Okay, I can now remove my string. Leave the tape there. It's pretty well fixed. We don't want to lose the string. And we can go ahead. Almost lost it. Use our stripper. Get rid of that tape. Twist it around. Pull it off. Now we need to mount the box. Well, for the wire to come through the mounting box, once again, we're going to have to take out one of these knockouts. So let me bring it down here, take it here, and punch it through. It was a little hard to see with my hand in the way, but we just punched it through. I'm going to make sure the knockout's out of the way. It didn't go all the way through, so I'm going to have to use a screwdriver again to make sure that knockout's out of the way. There we go. Take the piece of plastic, put it to a side. Now we've got to feed the wire through the knockout. And bring the box up to the wall. I'm going to fit it in, flush to the wall, grab my screwdriver, and now I'm going to tighten it up. Now remember, it's got those little flanges on the back, so as I'm turning it, the flange comes up and locks itself into position and pulls against the wall to hold the box tight and steady. Make sure it's good on there, good and tight. Okay, now we need to mount the outlet itself. Now a wall outlet is a little bit different. The wall outlet I'm going to use today is the one used by many different telephone companies. This outlet, as you can see, does not have any screws. We're going to use push-on terminals. It's a little bit different. So let me open up this little plastic here. It may be a little hard to see on camera. A little plastic cover. And I'm going to take the wire and I'm going to feed it through right here, just like that, so that I can work with it later. I'm going to put the box right there. I'm going to grab my screws and I'm going to mount this. Notice that this also has these ovals like we had on the plate before when we were installing our desk telephone. And we've got them here too so that we can make sure it's straight so your wall phone doesn't hang on an angle. Okay, let's line it up straight and tighten it into place. There we go. There. Okay. Now, once again, we're going to follow the color code like we've done all along. Yellow, red, black, green. Now, with this type of a box, well, let's start with the black one over here. We're going to take the black wire, move these other ones out of our way, and I'm going to connect it directly beneath where this black wire is going to the jack on this box. I'm going to feed it up from behind, just like that. And I'm going to take the tool and I'm going to try to push it into place. This is a little bit more difficult than the one with screws. It takes a little bit of patience. Okay, just like that. We'll go with the red one now. Get the hang of it after a minute or two. Push the wire. Let me see if I can let you see this a little bit better. I've pushed the wire up behind it and some in the front. I take the tool and I push straight up. Now, you may see that I've gone one off from this one. This one was directly below, and now this one's a little off to the side. That's okay. The two holes side by side like this, here with the green and the yellow, connect all to the same place, so I'm still okay. Now we'll go with the green one. And of course, lastly, the yellow. This is a little tricky. It may take you a little bit of time to install this plate, but it's a nice tight connection. I didn't have to strip the inner insulation. The jack did that for me. I am going to cut off some of this excess here. Cut that off. I'm going to push the extra wire back into the box, like that. I'm going to fold the flaps back into place, bring that back down. Now you notice that the jack moved a little bit while I was installing it, so let me just line it back up a little bit. Make sure it's good and tight. There we go. Okay, now we're just going to install its plate, the cover, and a couple of screws for that. Okay, this isn't as hard as you thought it was. Now, for some reason, you should have an old wall phone, and instead of adding an additional one like we're doing here, you need to change it to a modular. The wire will already be there, and all you need to do is follow the same color code that the old jack was using with the new jack. You don't have to go fishing a wire, it's already there for you. But the installing of one of these wall jacks is the same. It's a little bit more difficult with a wall jack because of that push-on connector, but it does make a good fitting. Now, a wall phone also needs a couple of rivets to hold it in place. The jack, of course, comes with those, and we'll install them. These will hold the wall phone in place. There's the one on the bottom. And I can put the one on top here. There you go. You have your wall jack all ready to install your phone, and it really wasn't that hard, was it? Okay, we removed the plate from the wall, and what do we find? 25 wires. Which one do we use? You'll generally find something like this in an apartment with no coating, as we've been talking about, no red and green. They're all different colors with different other colors on them. Here's a red wire with a green trace on it. What do? The easiest thing to do at this point is to go to a known working jack somewhere else in the apartment, take the jack off the wall, see the color code that's being used, and then follow the same color code for our new jack by just finding out the wires, stripping them off, and putting them on. If for some reason that is not possible, then we have to go through trial and error. The easiest way to do this is to use our telephone line tester. We're going to plug the telephone line tester into our new jack. Put this down for a second. Take a wire, strip off the insulation, connect this wire to either the red or the green terminal. It really doesn't matter at this point. Put that on there. We're going to tighten it down so it doesn't fall off. And now what you have to do is take all the other wires and one by one, there's generally a little bit of copper showing from the end, touch them to the other terminal. Now while you're doing that with each combination, each different wire, look at the lights on the telephone line tester. If either of the lights comes on, while you're touching these wires one by one, that's the combination you use. You can stop there. If the lights don't come on, we've gone through all these wires and the light has not come on, we need to remove the wire that we've just hooked up here, put it off to a side, take another wire, strip off the insulation, once again, put it on, tighten it down, make sure we got a good connection, and once again, go through all the remaining combinations of the wires. Now this one we've already tried, we can leave this one off to the side. Now once we've got a combination and one of these lights lights up, that's what we need. Those are the wire combinations. If the green light has lit, you've got proper polarity and you can go ahead and tighten down the screws with the wire that we have here, which in this case I'm showing as white with green, and let's say the other wire was yellow with blue. I can go ahead and tighten those down. Now if the red light should have lit, that means it's still the right pair of wires, but I've got it backwards. I've got tip and ring reversed. So all I need to do is remove the wires from the jack and reverse them. The green light should then come on, the jack is installed, and we can go ahead and put it back in the wall. Now when you put it back in the wall, I've already stripped some of this insulation off here. Before you do that, cut this off or tape it so you don't short out some other wires down the road that you may need later on. You're all set to go. And that's all there was to it. As you've seen, installing your own phone system is fairly easy and very simple. Just make sure that you observe the polarity and check all your connections with a telephone line tester. Take the time to follow the wiring code all the way through so that you don't cross any wires or reverse any polarities. In case you were wondering through all this, the red and the yellow wires are what they call tip. It's generally a positive lead. The green and the black wires are what is known as ring. It is generally negative in polarity. I've shown you most of the common wiring used. You're going to run into some variations. They're not really that hard. Just remember, telephones only use 2 wires. Stop, think, and remember what you have seen. If you need more detailed instructions, stop by your public library for a book, or you can even stop by RadioShack. We also carry a book for installing your own telephone system. It'll give you all the detailed information that you need. Good luck with your installation. You're going to find it's a lot easier than you think.